Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jay and I'm a naval historian, and today we're in the second part of a short series I've been doing on the Battle of Leyte Gulf, and this is a conclusion of a kind of more overarching arc of stories from the Pacific War I've been talking about involving the three of the main carrier involved battles. Started, of course, with the Coral Sea Midway campaign, and then the entire Marianas campaign, which included the Battle of the Philippine Sea. And this week we are concluding, or this month we're concluding with the Battle of Leyte Gulf, which is the largest naval engagement ever. Again, I do always recommend starting with Samuel Eliot Morrison's history naval operations in the Second World War with the Leyte Gulf volume, which is one entire volume. And of course, if you want a shorter read with a lot of heroicism, you can always check out The Last Stand of the Tin Can Sailors by the late James Hornfisher. I should note that I have an older print. I believe there's a different cover now. Of course, should be available through your local bookseller. If not there, you can always get through bookshop.org. Again, I'm not sponsored by bookshop.org. I just like that they partner up with local bookstores and donate part of the proceeds from books ordered from them to your favorite local bookstore. With that, we're going to discuss just two battles today. The Battle of the Sibuyan Sea on October 24th, 1944, and then also the Battle of the Surigao Strait on October 25th, 1944. When we left off, we were discussing the submarine action on October 23rd, 1944, and also the background. So with no further ado, we will get to what happened with the Battle of Sibuyan Sea. So, again, as a reminder, Halsey's Third Fleet was down one task group. So, Task Group 38.1 had been sorted out to Ulithi for replenishment. And so, about 40% of the American air strength was missing for this engagement. And of the three task groups remaining, the one that was closest to Corita's center force, which was coming through the Sibuyan Sea toward San Bernardino Strait, was Task Group 38.2, which only had one Axis-class carrier, USS Intrepid, and two Independence-class light carriers, Independence and Cabot. I should let you know, Essex-class short-haul carrier could hold about 80 aircraft, or in the long haul, about 100 aircraft, whereas the Independence-class carriers were limited to about 50 aircraft. So that's, well, today it was like, okay, that's not too bad, but back then that was kind of a big deal because that was the main combat force, and so the more planes you could have, the better. Anyway, it was actually the land-based aircraft that made the first moves that day when aircraft from Luzon decided to counterstrike Task Group 38.3, which had been conducting airstrikes on those airfields to prevent basically them being sorted to hit shipping in Leyte Gulf. So there was three waves, about 150 aircraft total. Most of these planes were knocked down and driven off. Thankfully, by this time, the SSF Hellcat was available, and most of the efforts were done by the fighter sections from USSX, led by the legendary David McCampbell. Now, unfortunately, one bird did get through, a Judy, and it hit the carrier USS Princeton with a 250 kilogram or 551 pound armor-piercing bomb, and it just caused all sorts of havoc throughout the day. Eventually, Princeton exploded at 3:23 that afternoon, probably in bomb storage, which is what they thought, and we actually do have a photo of that happening. I have it up here on the screen. And so, and she was eventually scuttled later that day as they determined that she was not recoverable. And I should note that the Princeton was the only U.S. light carrier to be sunk during the entirety of the war. Um, Now, at the same time, Task Group 38.2 had launched their sortie against Center Force, and we actually do have footage of that. Most famously, and the heaviest hit was the battleship Musashi. Her, along with her sister Yamato, who also took hits during this battle, as well as battleship Nagato, which was not a sister or part of the Yamato class, but Musashi and Yamato were the largest battleships in the world, famously carrying the 18-inch main guns. Like I said, Musashi took a ton of hits, specifically at least 17 bombs and 19 torpedoes, which led to her demise that evening. And there were also a bunch of... It just basically caused chaos in that tiny stretch of land, so much so that Admiral Kurita, the Center Force commander, decided to turn his ships around and feign a retreat in order just to get away from the aircraft, out of range aircraft, which caused Halsey and Task Group overall command task Third Fleet to think that the Japanese Center Force was retreating and took much more damage than they thought was actually there. But Korea used it basically as a feint just to get out of aircraft range, and he turned around that evening to head at best possible speed towards San Bernardino Strait with the goal of being in Leyte Gulf the following morning. Like I said, with that feint, Halsey was like, sent out instructions as a contingency plan to form Task Group 34, which would have been the available fast carrier battleship or fast battleships, such as yours that were available to him from the South Carolina, North Dakota, and Iowa classes, and they've been led by Willis Lee, who was commander of all the battleships in the Pacific Ocean, and a gunnery expert in his own right, and who definitely deserves his own episode at some point in the future, as he was a marksman with pretty much any size caliber gun from a 45 caliber pistol all the way up to a 16-inch 50 caliber gun. Now, the instructions did get forwarded to Nimitz and King, as well as eventually was picked up by 7th Fleet, but it was not intended to be an order, but a contingency plan, because Halsey did send out a message to the 3rd Fleet saying, hey, this only happens if, and it will only be directed by me, and like, do this. Now, that message never got to Pacific Fleet Command, U.S. Fleet Command in Washington, nor to 7th Fleet. That was basically based on Halsey's assumption that the carriers were the greater threat to the invasion force, that they saw carriers, and also Halsey not understanding or just refusing to believe that the Japanese pretty much were combat air ineffective and just did not have any planes or well-trained crew or anything like that. And there may have just been a little bit of jealousy involved as well, knowing that his friend had a very, very successful campaign in the Marianas and with the Philippine Sea, and he just wanted all the glory. Now, in the meantime, down in Surigao Strait, which took place in the early hours of October 25th of 1944, the Southern Force under the command of Nishimura uh, was able to fortunately was able to get to where they were, but they were met by the old battleships of the Seventh Fleet, led by Admiral Jesse Oldendorf. And what's significant about this is that most of these battleships that were involved, including West Virginia, Maryland, Tennessee, California, and Pennsylvania, just not even a few years ago were on the bottom of Pearl Harbor, um, and were successfully raised and brought back into combat. Now, I could only find one good photo of this battle, in this photo by West Virginia, because like I said, this was a night battle, had been like 2, 3 in the morning, and so but what I do know is that after running through a gauntlet of PT boats, the battle ended up being a classic and probably the most perfect crossing of the T. So in naval parlance, crossing the T is you want to be the top of the T, basic, and the horizontal part. That means you have all your guns available at broadside and can throw the most shells at the enemy. You did not want to be the stem of the T, the vertical part, because that means a lot of your guns will not be able to shoot at the enemy, and you have to do a lot of weird stuff. Fortunately, like I said, this ended up being not just a successful crossing of the T, it ended up being a major U.S. Victory in which the U.S. was able to knock out a couple of battleships, a couple of cruisers, and a few destroyers, while only losing having damage to a couple of destroyers and a few PT boats. And that also ended up being the last time that two battleship fleets would fire their big guns at each other, since then there has been no major fleet action involving battleships, and especially since everything is just done by missiles now. Anyway, so with that, this week covers the Battle of the Sibuyan Sea, as well as the Battle of Surigao Strait. Next week, we'll do Battle off Samar and the Battle off Camp Engano, and kind of wrap this series up. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like if you do. If you know someone who would enjoy this story, please share it with them. Subscribe if you haven't as well. Finally, if you're going to leave any comments, please be kind and respectful to everyone. And until next week, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.